Look, you kind of piqued something in my mind. One, Allen Robinson is not going there. How dare you, sir? But no. But I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. But from the outside looking in, and you kind of talked about look at what happened as far as Stephon Diggs, even Emmanuel Sanders ending up in Buffalo. Is it part of it due to the offense? And the offense is successful, but due to the fact that you have a quarterback who is basically 70% of the offense almost. Is it a situation where some receivers, especially high-profile receivers, that may not be the first place on their set destinations because they're looking to get high numbers. One, because it gains them accolades, but also just in future contracts, it allows them to go out and validate their worth when they're negotiating with other teams. Is that part of the issue when it comes to attracting top flight receivers to come and play in Baltimore?
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the question at all. There are different goals that different players have in this league, whether it's to win, to get personal statistics, get accolades, future Hall of Fame career. So if there's a player who sees the Baltimore offense and then they see the Pittsburgh offense or the Kansas City offense, and they say, well, I know I'm going to catch more balls in Pittsburgh or Kansas City than I am going to in Baltimore and still have a pretty good chance to win. I'm sure that might have happened once or twice. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster did say that the Ravens offense, he loves Lamar Jackson, but he alluded to the fact that it might be a bit run heavy for him. So I think it's certainly that. But John Harbaugh also made it a point in a press conference before free agency to say, look, we're not going to beg anybody to come to Baltimore. If they want to come and play in our offense, that's awesome. But if they don't, then I think he said something along the lines of, we look forward to playing you. So it's stuff like that where the Ravens believe in their system. The Ravens kind of zigged while the rest of the league zagged and went in a completely different direction. The league is definitely more pass heavy now than I think it's ever been. And the Ravens are going back to that ground and pound offensive style. So it's about the guys who buy into the culture. And Sammy Watkins is one of those guys. He said that he already is so excited to play with Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's an indictment of Jackson as a player and how he's viewed around the league, but I think it's more of the offense. And for the players who do want to catch more footballs and catch more touchdowns, I don't blame them for doing that, but Baltimore might not be their top choice.
Listen, sticking with the injuries, and unfortunately, you had J.K. Dobbins go down. Especially, like, one of the things here in Chicago, whenever Justin Fields plays, one of the great things that takes place when you have a running quarterback or a quarterback that uses the run is it opens up the run game for other running backs because you can't necessarily just gear down and put 8 in the box to stop that running back. You don't know what's going to happen with that quarterback. And when you look at the fact that J.K. Dobbins is looked at as being a top 3 natural runner in the NFL now, to lose him for a team with championship aspirations, was there any blowback? And I know he only had 23 plays and he only had 10 actually touches in the preseason. Was there any blowback to John Harbaugh? And how do you replace that production? You mentioned Gus Edwards as far as catching the ball. We know he's a bruiser, and I know you have Tyson Williams and Justin Hill, but those guys, I mean, that seems like asking a lot. You know what I'm saying? So what do you do to replace JK? And was there any type of frustration with John Harbaugh having him out there during the preseason, even though it was a fluke injury?
Right. There was definitely frustration. It was kind of the tale of two sides, though. It was, why do you have the starters playing in the preseason versus the starters need game reps? And I don't have a problem with starters playing in the preseason. I think it's important for them to go out there and get some live game reps. And football is a game where injuries happen anywhere. Practice, preseason, regular season, playoffs. They can happen on any given play because that's just the nature of football. This Dobbins injury could have happened the first play of week 1. It would have been the same thing. But the way the 3 preseason game format versus the 4 preseason game format is pretty interesting, because what we used to see was the 3rd preseason game in that 4 preseason game format was the game where the starters played the most. They would get a quarter or a half, and then in the final game, which was that 4th one, the starters would not play whatsoever. So I think, in my opinion, the final preseason game is one where I wouldn't have had the starters in there. I understand that, if you get them in the 1st and the 2nd game, that's awesome. Ramp them up to the 2nd, then in the final one, just kind of let them relax and rest up till week 1. But different teams are going to approach it different ways. You can never tell when an injury is going to happen. And this isn't me seeing it in hindsight and saying, oh, well, they got injured, I don't think they should have done it. I was saying the whole previous week, look, I wouldn't have been shocked if they were to do it, because their guys did not get a lot of practice time together because of all the injuries. So now, how do you replace J.K. Dobbins going down? Because that's now a reality this team does have to face. Gus Edwards now elevates to that lead back. He'll get a lot more of a workload, I don't think he's going to be a workhorse, like 100% of the carry type guy, because Tyson Williams is going to be able to take a lot of that workload away based off of what he saw or what he showed in the preseason. Justice Hill also has been dealing with an ankle injury and didn't really show a ton in the preseason, but with the Dobbins injury, it did open up the spot for him. So all in all, I think that the Ravens do have the guys to replace Dobbins, but you're going to miss the balance. You're going to miss the cutback ability. You're going to miss the vision, the speed. It's a brutal loss for the offense, but luckily the way the offense operates already, it doesn't truly rely on just one guy. So it's not like this injury is going to completely derail their Super Bowl chances, but it does definitely hurt.
That day was so with Kevin Ostracker, producer of the Locked On Ravens podcast and manager editor of Ravens Wire. Follow him at KOstracker34. Listen, speaking of departures, you guys had a pretty big one, and I mean, I'm sure Kansas City enjoyed it, but you're looking at Orlando Brown Jr. being gone. I know Ronnie Stanley is back, but thinking about that run game and now having a run greater in Orlando Brown Jr. gone, how do you think, one, protection for Lamar Jackson, but also just the running? How do you think you guys are going to kind of grade out with the loss of Orlando Brown Jr.? And I guess what additions do you have enough additions to fill such a talented tackle?
Yeah, I think the Ravens did do enough to replace Orlando Brown Jr., but this offensive line would no doubt be better with him. And it's unfortunate because this wasn't a situation where Brown was upset with the organization or didn't like his teammates and wanted out. He just wanted to fulfill his father's dream, Orlando Brown Sr., of him playing left tackle at the NFL level. That was a dream that his father had for him for the longest time. And there are stories out there that he told a lot of people, one of them being Orlando Brown Jr. youth football. His dad went up to his coach and told him, if my son is not playing left tackle, put him on defense. And, that's just how much that meant to him. And the opportunity to play left tackle when Ronnie Stanley goes down with that injury, I think kind of pushed that forward for him, because he showed that not only can he play right tackle at a high level, but he can do it on the left side as well. So the Ravens weren't going to give up their left tackle spot because Ronnie Stanley does occupy it. He's one of the best when he's healthy. But moving on there, Orlando Brown Jr.'s loss, you mentioned it, very, very good run blocker, can move out in space. He's gotten better at it. He's not the most athletically gifted guy, but he's huge. He's so tall, and, he's not going to beat anybody with speed to the second level, but he can definitely maul you. And now with his loss, the Ravens bring in Alejandro Villanueva from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Definitely a downgrade, and Villanueva's also moving from left tackle to right tackle, so he's been adjusting to that, which is no easy adjustment for anybody.
Right.
And he's gotten better. The first preseason game definitely struggled in the reps that he had, but he looked better in the second and third games. The Ravens also bring in guard Kevin Zeitler from the New York Giants, who has been as steady as anybody in this league. The Ravens were kind of still feeling the retirement of Marshall Yanda last year. That was a tough blow for them. He's a future Hall of Famer, one of the best in NFL history. So Zeitler should be able to come in and provide them a boost at right guard. They're moving Bradley Bozeman from left guard over to center. Bozeman played that during his college career at the University of Alabama. Was a good one there too. And the reason they're doing that is because they have not had very good center production in recent years. They've struggled with snaps. Matt Skura, Patrick McCarry. In that Buffalo game, Lamar Jackson got concussed because of a bad snap from a center. So the Ravens are going in and just trying to find those upgrades. Left guard is a bit of a rotation right now. It should probably be Ben Powers, but factoring in the loss of Brown and what the Ravens brought in on the offensive side of the ball and the offensive line, this is a huge group. Each guy is just massive as a human being, and they're going to impose their role in the run game for sure. But where I expect there to be a little bit of an upgrade is in the pass protection. Lamar Jackson in some games was running for his life, couldn't get anything, especially in the Buffalo game. A lot of people blamed Jackson for that loss, but he just 2 seconds and there were 5 people in the offensive backfield. So with the strengths that the pass protection should offer this year and plus the run game, I think it'll be a better year for the offensive line. But again, it definitely would be better if Orlando Brown was in there with him.
Kevin, let's focus on the guy under center while we're talking about the offensive line, and that's Lamar Jackson. There's been a little slander coming out, a couple of teams saying that, they figured him out, quote unquote, which would be interesting to see this season. What are the expectations? Because, clearly he's proven the doubters wrong. But then you have the situations where incrementally he's getting better in the playoffs, but you don't have that necessarily splash. You hope perhaps this year will be the splash where all the naysayers can just go to hell, basically. But what are the thoughts as far as people saying that perhaps the league has figured Lamar out?
Yeah, well, Lamar said himself he doubts it. He was asked that exact question. The comments were brought up, and he said, yeah, I doubt it. And I mean, I agree. Well, I think what people have figured out is that he's very, very hard to stop. Now, he can be stopped, but he's 30-7 as a starter over the course of his NFL career. His first NFL season fully as a starter, he won the second ever unanimous MVP in NFL history. So a lot of people took that MVP season and I think saw his 2020 numbers and were like, he's regressed terribly. He's awful, which a lot of people can't multiply unanimous MVP seasons year after year after year. There's going to be some statistical regression, but he improved in efficiency on some areas. You saw good red zone efficiency. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the red zone in the entire NFL. He's good from the pocket. He's able to work off play action. So I think people are still feeding into the narratives, which are honestly kind of tired at this point because he deserves criticism for some of the things that he can't do well right now. You know, he's not just completely, he's not able
winning from the pocket.
Right, exactly.
It's totally winning from the pocket. Not to say that he doesn't make plays from the pocket, but if the run was taken away from him, which they can't, but you still get what I mean, that he still hasn't just progressed from the point that he could just eviscerate you from the pocket, basically.
Right. He's not safe from all criticism for sure. And he does have room to grow as a passer. He's not the best passer the NFL has ever seen in their history. But I think all right, we're going to figure him out this year. I mean, we heard that last year, and the Ravens struggled a bit to start the season off, or not to start it immediately. They beat the Browns 38-6, but they struggled to find their identity. Once they found their identity, it was off to the races. They won their final 5 games after that whole COVID thing where they pretty much had to put 20 players on the COVID list and play with a lot of backups. So after that, the Ravens found their identity. Lamar Jackson came back, and that's what happened. But I do think that the notion of figuring him out, yes, you can stop him, but it's extremely hard to do so. And he's shown time and time again that he's played at this next level. And we don't hear that stuff with guys like Josh Allen or guys like Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield. You know, we hear it a bit. It's not out there, but I think it's so magnified with Lamar Jackson that sometimes the criticism that he deserves becomes stuff that's undeserved because people are just feeding into narratives that frankly don't exist anymore.